Just want to thank everyone once again for joining me for these live internet studies. My name is Ariel Ben Lyman Hanavi, bringing you these live studies week after week. Sometimes we miss a week, and sometimes we go 2 weeks in a row missing, but this time we just missed a week. So if you need to play catch up, go back and listen to episode number 183 for the Matthew study as well as the Shema study, and that way you can kind of pick up where we're going to pick up now, that way you're not falling behind. But follow along with me. Let's just jump right into our Matthew study. I have always been reading the Matthew 9, 14 through 17 verses first. So let's start there again, get the context of the discussion, and then we're jumping into a new section tonight. We're finally done looking at all the Christian pastors like Pastor John MacArthur, Pastor John Piper, gotquestions.org, and some of those others, Pastor David Guzik. We're done looking at those. We're now going to begin to shift towards a different perspective, not the historic standard Christian view on this passage. We're going to start looking now at the kind of the Messianic perspective, if you want to call it that, Hebraic roots perspective. But let's read the passage first. Matthew 9, 14 through 17. This is ESV. Matthew starts by saying that, then the disciples of John came to him, speaking of Jesus, saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? That's verse 14. And as you know, the part of the parable that deals with fasting, I didn't even really focus on heavily. There is some in my commentary, which is available on my website at tetzetorah.com, the Matthew commentary itself. But mostly I'm focusing on the part of the parable that talks about the unshrunk cloth, the old garment, the old wine, and the new wineskins, and things like that. That's the meat of my commentary. This is a discussion about replacement theology and supersessionism. Has Judaism replaced Christianity, or are they incompatible with one another? Did Jesus bring something so radically new to Judaism that it required the displacing of the Jewish worldview, the removal or disposal of Judaism as a way of life in order to usher in this new way of thinking and living known as the New Covenant, New Commandments, Law of Christ, etc., etc. That's the point of having this discussion. So, reading this passage, starting at verse 15, and Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. Again, if you read through standard common Christian commentaries on this passage, some are going to put all three of these together and say that Jesus is basically teaching the same principle, just using three different anecdotal devices like stories or parables to deliver his thoughts. Others are going to say no, actually they're not connected, at least the first one and the last two. I'm not hard and fast on my decision one way or the other. So feel free to comment either way. Verse 16, no one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Verse 17, neither is new wine put into old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst, the wine is spilled, the wines are destroyed, but new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved. End quote. So, as you can see, these are details of kind of just real-life events. Jesus isn't making up some imaginary parable or something like that. He isn't weaving a fictional story and inserting his own spiritual meaning to it. These are kind of all everyday activities or circumstances that anyone back in the first century would have easily related to, right? Weddings and drinking or eating, patching clothing, and putting wine into wineskins. Of course, fast forward to today's modern society, right, 21st century, and most of us don't really relate. Maybe we don't really usually relate to any of the three. Mourning at weddings or rejoicing at weddings. Well, we rejoice at weddings, but mourning at weddings. Right, things like that. That's odd to us. Patching up clothing is also a little kind of outdated now. I mean, these days, if clothes start to get holes in them, you either keep wearing them because that's fashionable. I mean, heck, sometimes you can buy clothes that already have holes in them, right? I remember going to the store and seeing jeans that already had lots of holes when that was the fashion. Like, good grief, are you paying top dollar for this to have the holes already there? But typically, if my clothes end up with too many holes, instead of patching them and worrying about the idea of the patch and the cloth shrinking away from one another, I simply just go buy new clothes, right? That's what most people do. Just go toss the old ones or give them to the Goodwill and buy some new ones. All right. And then likewise with wine and wineskins, that's not a practice that I'm aware of anyone that does these days. Perhaps they do in those countries where wine is the big industry, maybe like in Italy or France or something. I think maybe the winemakers do use wineskins, but most practices, I know wine goes into some type of a barrel or some type of a man-made container or natural container, a styrofoam container or something. I don't know. But, or you just buy it in the bottle and, you don't even worry about wineskins and things like that. So, but for Yeshua's day, there were obviously some meanings tied to this. And so we talked in my commentary. Let me just switch to that page now.